Hey everybody, welcome back to Talking Tuesday. We are so glad that you're here. Today we're going to talk about generosity, that this rhythm of being generous is not some kind of add-on or some attachment, but it's actually really core to what it means to follow Jesus. I have Anthony with me. Anthony's amazing. He does a bunch of stuff around here, and one of those things is think about and help us handle with integrity money. And so Anthony, would love to hear kind of your perspective, even as you personally consider generosity yourself, and for folks that maybe are thinking about taking a step towards generosity in this generosity challenge, kind of what comes to mind? What are ways you personally process generosity?
Yeah, so generosity for me is something that's different, right? It was something kind of small, and it's become something bigger, and I'm hoping that it becomes something even bigger, right? But I consider myself fortunate that I grew up in church, and this has just been a kind of a habit that I've had for a long, long time. But for a lot of people, it's not a habit. It's not something that they know about. It's not something that they practice on a kind of consistent basis. So I would say for wherever you find yourself on that spectrum, right, jump in to wherever that seems fit for you. For me, man, I just love the idea of being able to give back to God, right? I feel like He's given me so much, and I just want to give back to Him a small portion, right? He's not asking for everything. He's asking for our lives, but as it relates to our checkbook, he's not asking for everything, right? And so whatever I can give is what I love to be able to do. And I know that's not the same for everybody, right? But for me and my family, that's definitely what makes us tick.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been talking about recently is this kind of challenge we all live in this cultural moment where it feels like the message that we've all received, and if we're not careful, we chase, is that more is better. And so we simply have to keep getting, keep upgrading, keep acquiring, keep growing. And at some point, I think what we all discover, maybe it's like because the phone that you just got is already not that cool, or because the house that you just got into has more problems than you thought it did. At some point, even if it's just one thing, I think God just kind of whispers to our soul, like, more isn't better. And really, I've heard it said this way, that when you think about sequencing, the way that God has sequenced our heart to work as it relates to managing His money is to actually give first, and then to save, and then to spend, really to live on what's left. And I think we're just kind of in the exact opposite culture of where we spend not just what we have, but what we don't have. And then maybe we save if we have extra, and maybe we give to God. I've heard it described as kind of tipping God if we had a really good quarter, if there's like a little left over. And I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding, right? I touched on it earlier, but Anthony, I wonder if you could just speak to, when we think our money is ours, what does that do in us? And maybe what is the more accurate biblical perspective?
Yeah. So I kind of picture it this way, like this open hand concept. When it's something is mine, right? I keep it in my hands and I keep it really tightly to myself, right? And there's something almost physical. If you just think about your fists clenched like this, there's something physical about, like, man, I don't feel comfortable. But as we start to open up our hands, right, and we become more generous, even just the physical act, right, of opening up our hands, there's just something like a freedom that comes. And it's so counterintuitive, right? Because when we make money, it's ours, and we want to invest it, or we want to spend it, or we want to do whatever with it. But if we really think about these resources really not as ours anyways, we're just kind of managers, or what kind of this Bible term would be like a steward, right? We're just stewarding these resources. If we're doing that well, we're doing it in the right order, right? Where we are giving first, we're saving, and then we're spending, not the other way around, right? And so there's just this freedom, and it's just antithetical to Western culture, right? This freedom that comes when we give first, and we have that open-handed posture. It's something that we need to practice, right? It doesn't come naturally. Certainly not for me, maybe for you, but certainly not for me.
No, it doesn't come naturally to me either. Yeah. I mean, I think I heard a long time ago, right? You never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. Like, you can't take any of it with you. And I think even if you're not a Christian, even if you're somebody that's just kind of thinking about money in general, I think we can all kind of understand and relate to this fact that, like, this life is really just a moment in the landscape of history. And how do you want your life to matter? Like, what is it that you want to leave behind? And the impact of the way we spend our money and the way that we invest it and give through generosity is so critically important. And so we know that it's difficult. That's why we're talking about this generosity challenge and giving you 40 days to just take a step on this kind of journey of generosity that we've mapped out a little bit. I know that this is difficult, but I think at the end of the day, for all of us to be able to hear the words of Jesus where he says, hey, wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart actually is. And I think what's so hard for me to hear in that is that my money becomes a mirror. And wherever I place it, like I might not like what that says about me, but that's actually what's most true about me. And so I think that there are big challenges in being able to examine. For most of us, I think it's easy to slip into this place where we're just spending, and it's almost reactive to see and go, oh my goodness, I guess my heart is on eating out. My heart is in a new car. My heart is in a bigger house. But what does it look like for your heart to really be connected to the heart of heaven? And we believe that growing in generosity is a big part of that.
And I would also say, like, those things are not bad in themselves,
Sure.
right? The heated seats in your car or the whatever that you have, not bad, right? But if the priority is wrong, then it becomes a slippery slope into that bad territory. So, right, we're not condemning the $5 latte that you're buying, right? And we're not condemning anything, frankly.
Right.
But there's a way, I think, that we do this right. And if we're doing it right, all of those things kind of fall into place nicely.
Of course. And I think I would say if you're somebody that's kind of wondering about what generosity looks like, it's easy to think, well, when I have my bills paid down, when we're in the clear, when we sell the house, when the car payments are done, then I'll whatever. And I would just say in my own life, the fastest way to a better, more intentional way to spend my money is to begin with generosity, to give God my best. Jesus says that if you'll seek God and his kingdom first, then basically the idea is like the rest of it will kind of make sense in your life, that God will create and provide the right opportunities and the right perspective for you to be intentional with what's left. And I think sometimes what happens is we say, God, I got it. I'll come back to you and I'll give to you and I'll be intentional about placing you first when I've done all this first. And that's just not the same thing.
And it seems like it would make sense to do that.
Right.
But in God's economy, some reason it does not.
Well, I think the big part is, right, it's our heart. And so I think when we have control of it, even if you get to the place where all those check marks are done and you feel like you've gotten it, it's all taken care of, you did it. And so at what point are you going to really surrender, like Anthony talked about, open hands, say, God, my hands are open both with what I have and with what you want to give me. Would you just continue to open my heart to you? Would you continue to build my trust in you? And then that doesn't just keep track of what happens financially, that takes place in our whole life. So I hope that this has been a helpful conversation for you. We really, really want these conversations to be ones that take what we're talking about each week and then extend it at the gym, or extend it as you take the kids to school, or extend it at work, so that you can continue to think about this, and hopefully that God can continue to speak to you about it. I hope this has been a blessing to your life and that God uses it to challenge and stretch you and grow you more like him. Till we see each other again. Have a great day.